Hello, I'm here with Jen. So thanks very much for joining me.
Thanks, Dylan. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. Jennifer is your full name, isn't it?
Yes, that's it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, just to make sure I'm correct there. I suppose yeah. So yeah, I suppose just for anyone that hasn't heard your music before, can you kind of give us a bit of a background to yourself and your music and kind of how you got started?
I suppose I always grew up in like a musical family and stuff, so I was kind of immersed in music from a really young age. My dad would have played in bands, and my extended family and things like that would have played a lot of music. So I was always playing music when I was younger. I started off kind of playing more traditional kind of folk kind of stuff, and then kind of once I started I wanted to do and things like that. So or what I kind of wanted to develop in, and it was always kind of that kind of indie folk, indie slash
Yeah.
indie rock kind of sound I was like kind of looking for and going for. But I think I was kind of heavily influenced by like a lot of kind of rock growing up, like listening to a lot of like Phil Lynott and Rory Gallagher and all these kind of guitar
Mm.
heroes and things like that. So I think that they were huge kind of influences, sitting with my dad and stuff and listening to a lot of that real kind of rocky kind of stuff and things. And then different choirs and things like that. I was playing in trad groups, and then it was actually only like a couple of years ago I kind of had the confidence to kind of share my songs and stuff like that. I would have always kind of attended like, sessions at the weekend and would have like just played music, but not didn't really like sing my own kind of songs and things
Yeah.
like that. And I think when I moved to Edinburgh, I was going to different like open mics and meeting singer songwriters and things like that. And I think it just gave me the kind of confidence to just go up and sing my own stuff. And I think when I got a nice kind of pursuing my own music, it kind of just gave me more of a drive and a focus on, where I wanted to go with my music, and I haven't stopped since. So yeah, it's kind of journey, I think, kind of transitioning from, I suppose, playing with a lot of folk
Mm.
and then kind of doing my own kind of solo career and things like that. So yeah, journey, but an enjoyable one at that. So yeah.
And how would you describe kind of what your music is like now? Say you've been very active in the past few months or so. How would you kind of describe that music specifically?
I suppose when I was first, writing and things like that, I would have kind of fallen, amongst like a lot of kind of folk elements. And I still
Mm.
do find like I am, when I am writing songs, that I do kind of fall into that kind of pattern. But I think I've always had like, I think it's such a desire to kind of, bring in kind of more heavier kind of stuff into my music. And I think, um my song Eyes for You, a lot of people were kind of guitar and how it kind of sounded kind of that
Yeah.
90s vibes and stuff like that. And I think I almost kind of just do it like subconsciously, in terms of like I think even when I'm in the studio and stuff like that, like the way I kind of create it just kind of comes on the spot rather than kind of planning out, the way I want
Mm.
this song to be and things like that. And I think I just kind of um bounce ideas there and then. And I suppose that was kind of just something I was always kind of used to doing, and would have, being and playing with other people, you kind of develop that kind of ear for music and how you
Yeah.
kind of want, your music to sound and stuff. So yeah, but I think I've just a huge interest in every music that I do find sometimes I'm falling into different elements. And I think when I first started out, I was like, I'm indie folk musician, singer songwriter, and the songwriting element, that will always be there because I want my music to tell a story.
Mm.
I want, people to be able to connect with it. But I suppose I do find, um, you know, coming on from the singer songwriter kind of thing, I suppose I am developing, kind of musical sounds and musical kind of influences that I would have, listened to years ago. And
Yeah.
I kind of almost feel like they're just kind of falling into my music, kind of just, but then again, I've worked with other like artists, I have friends who more garage music and they're looking for vocalists. And I think I've always just been open to just, you know, create music in any field or any sorts at all. And I think that's why I always, when I'm speaking about music, I always talk about, growing up in a trad scene and having that kind of traditional Irish, music
Mhm.
background, and I think it's something that will always just be part of me, even though my music might sound a wee bit different now. But it's always something that like I'll always kind of fall back and keep within me. So yeah, um,
So would it be fair to say then that, you've kind of kept this kind of folk or this kind of traditional or this kind of traditional style to an extent, but aside from that, it's very kind of spontaneous. It's you're kind of experimenting with different styles. Would that be fair to say?
yeah, I think so. And I think like when the new song got reviewed, I was looking at a couple of reviews, and there was a few people lilt like under the song, like that it was just kind of coming out in my voice. And I think I'd never want to like you know um like not have that as part of my music. That'll always be something that will
Mm.
just be ingrained. So like I would agree, like I think it is a natural the natural way I sing, or the natural way I
Yeah.
write. Like I write songs about like Irish history and things like that, because that they are things that I'm kind of interested in. So yeah, I think that when I go home, well, not so much now because of COVID, but even prior to that, like when I was going home, like
Mm.
anytime I do go home back to Cork, there'll always be a session arranged in like the local pub, and we all just go out, and it'll always be that kind of folky tradic stuff that you're singing, and I live for it. Like I love that. So that yeah,
Mm.
that'll always like be a part of me as such. So yeah.
Yeah, and are there any other artists that come to mind, any other particular artists that come to mind as an inspiration or an influence on your music?
I love Damien Rice, and I've always been such a
Mm.
fan of his like writing, and things like that. I suppose I've listened to him for absolute years now, and I just find the way he kind of portrays visuals in your mind, I just find them like really kind of
Okay.
striking and stuff like that. So I've always loved him. But I'm listening to a lot of new stuff at the moment that like is kind of heavily influencing like even my producer online, and even a lot of the stuff that I'm kind of listening to at the moment. I can almost feel kind of like that. You know, I'd love to kind of go down that kind of line of or that kind of style as such. And there's girls like Molly Pardon. I'm really into. She's a really good writer and musician, and another lad Joshua Burnside. He's from the north, and I just think he's a great writer as well. But I suppose that being said, I've always speak and you know tell a story through my music, and then I suppose when I'm in the studio, just bounce off ideas and just add different instruments and go from there. Like years ago, I played like piano accordion. And I actually bought one again recently because I was like, oh, that might sound quite nice in one of the songs. And it was a bit of a compulsive buy now, I must say. But like when
Yeah.
I bought it, I was I was like, that might sound quite like cool in one of the songs and things like I've plans for the future to get a band together, a separate project to my own solo
Okay.
career and things like that. And we've kind of even been thinking of getting more brass kind of instruments in the mix, and a bit of saxophone and trumpet and things like that. And I just think like even you know experimenting with those kind of sounds, I think they're really effective as well, and they're those kind of sounds is something that I want to actually bring into my EP as well. Um, but that being said, I suppose it's going to sound probably a wee bit different. But even the album that I want to release, hopefully by the end of this year or next week, sorry, next year, I won't get it done that fast. But next year, I wanted to kind of have a story feel. I wanted to kind of reflect like one theme and stuff. So
Okay.
yeah, yeah, but back to what you were saying, yeah, just there's loads of writers and loads of
Okay. I say yeah.
musicians that um you you influence me, and Cranberries fan as well, like Dolores O'Riordan and things like that. I
Okay.
love that kind of style as well. So yeah.
Okay. So yeah. So you mentioned hopefully starting up the band and stuff like that soon. That reminds
Hmm.
me. Since you moved to Scotland, has that helped at all in terms of like networking? And I suppose how has that kind of affected your career? Like, yeah, how has that kind of affected your career and where you've gone with your music?
I suppose, yeah, I mean, I moved over to actually do my master's, and I think at the time before I moved over, I was still playing a lot of music in Cork, and it's funny because a lot of friends of mine would have said, "Oh, I never knew you wrote music," and even schoolmates of mine from years ago were like, "I never knew you were writing music," and I was like, "I've written music for like absolute years since I was a wee tot, like as in
Mm.
I was writing it for so long." And I suppose when I did move to Scotland, there was so much a week, and I think I was using this platform to just sing my songs and see and test the waters in terms of like see what kind of reaction I'd get from a crowd, um, as such, and see what kind of audience would take to it. And
Yeah.
then I started getting involved in these kind of events called the pressure valve events, which were run like 7 nights a week as well. So I just kept going to these ones, um, and things like that all over Scotland. That um I started getting gigs in. I started playing cover gigs, 2 hours cover gigs, but that was something I never. I mean, it's good practice and it's good to meet people through that um way of music as well. But I think I was
Okay.
always someone who wanted to pursue their own music. And then I just decided to move to Glasgow because the scene is quite riveting there for original music. So and kind of support slots and things like that in different venues. But that being said, like I still have like that desire sometimes to move back home, and even when I was home 2 years ago, it was a year and a bit now. Um, I was playing. I actually organised a gig in the Roundy in Cork and things like that. So it was nice being home again, like playing
Yeah.
music at home and stuff like that. So, I suppose, yeah, good opportunities. I think in terms of even that and getting kind of exposure in um different kind of articles like Scotsman's art and stuff like that, and got played at Celtic Connections, which was probably a huge deal for me, and I'll probably never shut up about it. So yeah, I think getting the chance to have those kind of nice opportunities. Um but I think for me as well, I've always kind of wanted to Irish scene, and
Yeah.
it's nice to get like even recognized, you know being abroad as well.
Mm.
And I suppose it is also nice, being able to play music over here, and also get your music heard in the UK and in Ireland as well. So that's a really nice feeling for sure. So yeah.
Okay. What so I suppose, you mentioned the band and the album.
Hmm.
So like your album is kind of your first priority at the minute. Would that be fair to say?
The album, is it? Sorry, or
Yeah.
the
Um
yeah, well, I suppose I've actually kind of just even because I suppose restrictions are easing at the moment now, so we're
mm,
we're almost kind of trying to see if we can get some space to work on the band. I've been working kind of secretly on the album myself, like as in I've kind of just been prepping for it. So once I get in the studio, I suppose get it done within a couple of days. But I suppose I didn't actually want to work on the album over lockdown because I wanted that kind of studio experience of doing the album, if you get
yeah.
me.
Yeah, I
Um
understand. Yeah.
Whereas like I'm doing the EP like online, and I suppose I don't prior to lockdown and things like that, I didn't have a huge like knowledge or extensive knowledge on production and things like that, but I've literally just made means with what I can, and I've kind of tools out there what you can use and how you can produce music and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So I suppose it's kind of just open a complete different avenue for me, from a production point of view, and um that's been good. But yeah, I suppose both are taking priority for sure, because which probably allows no time sometimes for even the kind of solo side of things. But I suppose it's just a case of like, even when I was out and I was working full time, it was just kind of constant go go go, and I'm just a person who's kind of used to that at this stage. And I think I just have such a drive for music, and I just will take up any opportunity in music whatsoever, that it never feels like you know busy in a a way that's, you know, a bit mental. It's
Yeah.
always good busy, like, you know, and
Okay.
I think yeah, I think even having that kind of again, you know, in a group kind of setting and in a
Mm.
band setting is super exciting as well, because that's something I've been looking for a long time now, and I think writing with other folk as well will be really nice, and it'll be really interesting to see what we kind of come up with and stuff like that. So yeah,
Brilliant. Yeah. So
it is exciting stuff.
yeah, so a
Yeah,
lot of stuff in the pipeline then.
a
So
lot of
yeah,
plans. Yeah.
yeah, so yeah, we're actually almost out of time, which is after flying, to be honest. But I suppose just to wrap up, if people want to find you online and stuff like that, where should they look?
So just all my social media. So Instagram, Janella Music. Facebook is Janella. My Twitter is Janella Music, and then my music is on all the streaming platforms as well under Janella. And I actually just released a new music video for my song "Common People." So that's up there as well, along with the Lipstick Queen music video. So yeah, you could check that out. That would be great. Thank you.
Brilliant.
Thanks so much for having.
My pleasure. So this has been Jen Ella. Thanks a million again for coming on. And yeah, so hopefully
Thank
we'll
you.
hear a lot of new stuff coming out very soon.
Thank you so much. Cheers.